Hello and welcome to Worlds Apart. After refusing to be drawn into the fight for Kobani, Turkey has suddenly announced that it will allow Iraqi Kurds to cross into Syria to help local brigades fend off ISIS attacks. Will that shift in policy translate into major changes on the battlefield? And if so, what would it mean for Kurdish transnational solidarity? Well, to discuss it, I'm now joined by Turkish political analyst and TV host Ceylan Ozbudak. Ceylan, thank you very much for taking time to talk to us.
Thank you for having me.
Now, you've been very, very passionate in arguing that Turkey shouldn't be drawn into this war. You also argued that there are very few civilians left in Kobani and that in any case, Turkey shouldn't contribute to the death toll by joining with the Americans and others. And yet, Turkey, it seems, did just that. How do you explain this policy shift?
It's not really a policy shift. I mean, Turkey is not being dragged into a war right now in Kobani, because you cannot see Turkish soldiers fighting in Kobani. You cannot see Turkish planes bombing Kobani. Turkey already opened its borders to any kind of civilian passage. So it's not a surprising thing to see Turkey allows now Peshmerga to go through Turkish borders to Syria, because in practice, this was happening anyway. This was happening all along. There's a reason a lot of people right now can pass to Kobani, and it's because of the Turkish borders, open border policy.
Ceylan, but I think, I mean, if we check the recent statements coming out of Ankara, we will see that Turkish officials, President Erdogan including, was very, very wary of any kind of trans-border cooperation between the Kurds. You said that the border is open, but it's not open for Turkish Kurds. It's only been open for Iraqi Kurds just recently. Up until just a few days ago, a number of Turkish officials said that this is not going to happen because Syrian Kurds are well associated with the PKK, which Turkey still sees as a terrorist organization. So, as far as they're concerned, even Ankara officials are concerned, this is a major change.
First of all, there's a misunderstanding here. We don't call Syrian Kurds PYD. PYD is the Syrian part of, Syrian branch of PKK. The PYD is who we don't want to arm. PYD is who the group we as Turks see dangerous, because it's the Syrian branch of PKK, which is a terrorist organization according to the European Union, United States, and many other states. So not all Syrian Kurds are PYD. Not all Syrian Kurds support PYD. Plus, Peshmerga is not PYD.
Absolutely.
Peshmerga is officially elected.
Ceylan, but it is PYD that doing lots of the fighting on the ground, and it is PYD that the Americans have been dropping weapons to. I mean, let's not, confuse our viewers. They are the ones who are doing most of the bulk of the fighting there.
And PYD is also PYD that Turkey is not letting in. Turkey is only letting in the injured PYD fighters to be treated in Turkey. More than 500 PYD fighters are now being treated in Turkish hospitals. And Turkey, it doesn't mean that Turkey doesn't let anyone cross the border. There's a reason we have more than 182,000 Syrian Kurds right now cross the border to Turkey. It's because of the open border. But Turkey does not let PKK to cross the border to help PYD.
Now, you just made a point that, PKK is not the same as Peshmerga, and Peshmerga and PKK are not the same as PYD, and yet they have lots and lots of things in common. Common ideology, their ethnic ties, blood ties, what have you. How can you really support the Syrian Kurds, the political parties in Syria, the Kurdish political parties, without emboldening and even legitimizing the PKK?
Because not many of the Syrian Kurds, the majority of the Syrian Kurds do not want to be ruled by the PYD. If you look at the first refugee influx to Turkey, first 30,000 refugees from Syria came to Turkey 3 years ago to break free from PYD, from Cizre Canton. And if you check the latest International Crisis Group report, you can see a lot of Kurds in Kobani crossed to Turkey before the ISIS attack to run away from PYD. They are saying PYD is holding us hostage here. We don't want to be ruled by the PYD. They are not treating us as equals. They don't care about Syrian people. So we cannot say all the Syrian Kurds support PYD. And just because they share, genetic code, just because they share being Kurdish doesn't mean all of them support PYD. It's just like saying all Turks support AK party or all Turks support PKK. You know,
absolutely, we shouldn't make such sweeping generalizations. I agree with you on that point, but I think what is also clear is that the United States does support PYD, does support its military effort, and by opening the border, Turkey, in this case, is joining forces with the West, which again supports PYD. So, I mean, it may not be a direct form of support, but, you know, there's no way around. By opening the border, you are going to assist them. And I wonder if that is going to have any implications on the Kurdish issue in Turkey itself.
No, not at all, because first of all, still the Peshmerga did not cross the border. The Peshmerga is still waiting. And a few days before Turkey decided to open the border to Peshmerga, Nechirvan Barzani openly stated that Peshmerga is not going to fight in Kobani because Peshmerga is just enough to fight and protect the borders inside the other Iraqi Kurdish areas. So it is still not known that if Peshmerga will ever cross the border to fight in Kobani, because only 40% of the city center of the Kobani is right now ruled by PYD. And other than that, 80% of the Kobani is under ISIS occupation anyway. So it's not going to change anything.
Now, you just said that not all Syrian Kurds support PYD, but I think it's clear that there is a great amount of support for the defense of Kobani all over the world. I mean, among Kurds who are located all over the world. And we had a number of analysts here recently on the show who suggest that, you know, this defense of Kobani, which many see as heroic defense of Kobani, because the Syrian Kurdish forces are clearly outnumbered and ill-equipped, and they've been able to stand up against much better equipped ISIS. Many analysts believe that this heroic defense will energize Kurds all over the world, and I wonder if that may have, you know, larger political implications on the Kurdish movement.
This reminds me of the recent protests in Turkey. First of all, when we say Kurds support PYD, also in Turkey, when we say Kurds support PKK, it's not really the case. It's only because people's conception, because PKK and PYD is represented really very, very well in the media. And they have really high voices, you know, they have very loud voices. And the other Kurds do not really have loud voices. For example, in the latest protests in Turkey, PKK was attacking the other Kurds who do not join PKK. PKK killed 30 other Kurds, not Turks, not Turkmens, not Azerbaijanians, you know. They killed other Kurds who did not want to fight along with them, you know. So, but we do not hear them. They're not on the media. They're not talking about this, the religious Kurds. So not all Kurds support them.
But it doesn't matter whether they support PYD or not. I think there is a larger question of Kurdish identity. And the idea of the Kurdish state has been around for many, many decades. Now, politics, especially geopolitics, as we know, is all about give and take. So the West doesn't want to put, you know, troops on the ground. It wants the Kurds, you know, regardless of where they come from, whether they're from Syria, whether they're from Iraq, or whether they're indeed from Turkey. You know, the West wants the Kurds to do the fighting for them. And I wonder if the Kurds indeed succeed in pushing ISIS away, whether they will ask for something in return. And my guess is that this something is going to be very, very substantial, given the risks involved. So I wonder if the West can really offer the Kurds anything less than statehood in this case.
But it's not going to happen just because the West is offering this, you know, but because where will this state happen? Right now, there's a very, very serious civil war going on in Syria. There's a very serious civil war going on in Iraq. And Turkey is not going to give land for Kurds, you know, to establish a nation state. It's not about promises. It's about delivering the promises. So it's about how they will deliver.
But Ceylan, if you look at history, you know, the best, the most opportune moment for creating a state would be, again, the time of crisis. As you mentioned, you know, there is very little state control on the ground in Syria, in Iraq. So if Kurds rather indeed do the fighting, and if they manage to free those territories from ISIS, then that would, one can suppose, create a very ripe opportunity for them to actually claim that territory to themselves. It may not span all the way to Turkey, but it would already be, you know, a Kurdish state that could serve as a magnet for Turkish Kurds.
There already is something right there forming, but it is occupied by ISIS. And not all Kurds are going to fight for nation state under the under PKK or PYD, because not all Kurds want to be ruled by a Marxist organization. Maybe the majority of Kurds, maybe a lot of Kurds want a nation state, but not all of them, of these Kurds, want a Marxist nation state. So, for example, in Turkey, we have a really big Kurdish minority, maybe the biggest in the world according to some sources, but not all of them support PKK, not all of them support having a nation state because it's going to be under PKK. They don't want to turn into a communist state.
Absolutely. And I think, Ceylan, it's also worth mentioning that the Kurdish minority, Kurdish diaspora, was a very important constituency for Mr. Erdogan himself. But I think Kurdish grievances with the Turkish state go far deeper than the current government. I mean, as a reporter, I had a chance to talk to many Kurds in Turkey, and, they talk about the massacres of the 1930s, about the massacre of the 1990s. So for many of them, even if they don't see any problem with Mr. Erdogan personally, they still see a problem with the Turkish state. And many of them, I think now, feel very bitter about the fact that their own state doesn't want to help, their brothers in need just across the border in Kobani.
No, not all of them see it like that, because it is officially stated many times that there are not many civilians left in Kobani. All 182,000 of them came to Turkey, and they came to Turkey safely just because Turkey warned them beforehand, saying ISIS is going to occupy Kobani, so come to Turkey, and they did. So they know as a fact that there are not many Kurds left in Kobani. And if you remember, 2 weeks ago, Turkey opened the border to Kobani for anyone to cross for an hour, and some PKK fighters crossed the border. And in 1 hour, they came back. They didn't go fight there. And more than 500 PYD fighters are right now being treated in Turkey. And after their treatment, they stated that they don't want to go back to Kobani. Not everyone wants to go back there. And many of them want to live in the Turkish state.
Well, but Ceylan, if you're indeed so sure that they want to live in the Turkish state, why would Mr. Erdogan then, open the border for the Iraqi forces, Peshmerga forces?
There is great pressure from the West right now for Turkey to do something, because the fight against ISIS is really reduced to rather whether or not Turkey is going to help PKK or PYD or Kobani. Fight against ISIS cannot be won even if we give PYD an atomic bomb. It's not going to happen like that, because as we all know, just like PKK, ISIS is a guerrilla organization. It's consisting of guerrilla fighters, and guerrilla warfare usually does not respond to aerial bombing or other kinds of insurgencies. And we have seen this in the past. We have seen this in Cuba, we have seen this in Laos, in Vietnam, in China, in other places. If you remember, America bombed down the coastal place of Vietnam with B-52 planes with millions of bombs, and nothing happened. You cannot beat an ideology. Everyone, many of the states except Turkey right now, think of ISIS as a mafia organization. They think if we take out members one by one, it's going to extinguish. It's not going to happen, because it's an ideology. It keeps producing new people who support them. We have to encounter the ideology first.
Ceylan, I'm certainly not a very big supporter of the American intentions to bomb, various countries to get rid of the ideologies that they not support. But for the time being, we have to take a very, very short break. When we come back, the idea of an independent Kurdistan has been around for decades, but now it seems to have reached its make or break point. What are the arguments for and against? That's coming up in a moment on Worlds Apart.
This is a normal day during an escalation in Gaza.
This is serious and people will have been killed right now.
If we come out onto the roof now, wow. That's another explosion over there. There's another interception over there. Everything is deadly quiet.
The blue dot is us, and we're surrounded by Ukraine on all three sides. And actually, here we are at the border.
Right here. A shell landed right here.
In this kilometer that is around is that you can see several pieces of the aircraft.
We do have to remember that almost 300 people died, 295 to be precise. That was the site of especially intense bombing by Ukrainian forces just on Tuesday.
A lot of bodies have been found. The Organization of the Security Council of Europe.
Right from the scene. First-rate news and eye-gripping pictures. On our reporters' Twitter and Instagram. To be in the know, follow us online.
Business news, reviews, economic ups and downs from the finance hub of Moscow to London, New York, Shanghai and the rest of the globe. Join me, Katie Pilbeam, every week on RT.
Welcome back to Worlds Apart, where we are discussing the Kurdish issue with Turkish political analyst and TV host Ceylan Ozbudak. Ceylan, in some of your articles, you claim that since Marxist and Leninist ideas were so instrumental in shaping Kurdish political thought, Kurdistan in the Middle East would naturally be communist. And to you, that's a very, very fearful prospect. And I don't understand why, because, I mean, just like capitalism, communism has had many faces. There is the communism of North Korea and the communism of China, the communism of Vietnam and the communism of the Soviet Union. I mean, you can even argue that some of the Nordic societies, you know, Norway and Sweden, do incorporate some of the Marxist ideas in the way they organize their societies. So I was wondering if you are not using the specter of communism, this scary ghost of communism, to essentially demonize the Kurds and their national aspirations.
First of all, I didn't say the Kurdish political thought is being dominated by communism or Marxism. I said PKK and PYD is being dominated by Marxist ideas. Because not all Kurds support Marxism. For example, I'm a religious Muslim, practicing Muslim, and my master is Bediüzzaman Said Nursi. And Bediüzzaman Said Nursi does not support Marxism. And there are millions of Kurds who support the ideology of Bediüzzaman Said Nursi. So they hate Marxism, for example. Absolutely.
So why then you reach this conclusion that if Kurdistan was ever created, that it would necessarily have to be a communist state?
Because right now, the ideology of producing a nation state for the Kurds is being dominated by PKK. And PKK is a Marxist organization. You know, we cannot deny, and they're not also denying that PKK is a Marxist organization. But in some of the media outlets in the West, not in Turkey, but in the West, this is very important that they are created in Turkey, their main function is in Turkey, but they're not saying it's in Turkey, but they are saying this in the West, especially to, you know, fool people in the West, that they left being Marxists, and now they are switching into more liberalists. And this is not happening because we can see this from their actions. We can see this from their political stance. For example, in the latest protests in Turkey, everything they do is, you know, Marxist communist. So it's apparently the group didn't change at all.
Well, I wonder what your definition of Marxist-Leninist really is, because, I mean, you just said that PKK is leading this effort, national effort, but, you know, even if it succeeds in that effort, that state will have to be populated by ordinary people. And when you talk to ordinary Kurds in Turkey, in Syria, in Iraq, what they talk about is not Marxism or Leninism. They talk about the very long history of, you know, perceived prosecution and discrimination against their own people. So what makes you believe that ordinary people still care about this stuff?
because it is dominated by those ordinary people who are being brainwashed by PKK. You know, if you come to Turkey, for example, in many of the towns, you can see PKK training people to be Marxists. You know, they're not just calling people and to join them and accepting them as who they are. When we see the videos of PKK, they are making fun of people who pray, you know, who are performing the Islamic prayers. So they are making fun of this. Apparently, they are not going to respect people who want to perform their, you know, religious activities. And people who join them change their minds overnight almost. So we can see their influence on people, and we can see from their actions. First of all, they attack the Turkish people. They attack Kurdish people. There's a reason Abdullah Öcalan is being called a baby killer. It's not because he killed Turkish babies. He killed Kurdish babies in Kurdish villages who didn't join them. You know, forcing people on gunpoint to join them and killing the dissent is a Marxist, Leninist practice.
Well, Ceylan,
it's a liberal practice.
Let me disagree with you on that, but I mean, you just mentioned the name of Abdullah Öcalan, and it is true that he swore allegiance to the Marxist ideas, but he is somebody who is locked up in a Turkish prison, and many leaders of his generation are already gone. I mean, demographically, if you look at the makeup of the Kurds in many countries, it's a fairly young people. And I mean, as somebody who was born in the Soviet Union, and I can tell you that my parents swore allegiance to socialism, but it doesn't mean that people of my generation care about it. I guess my point here is that, you know, generations change, and with generations, ideologies change as well. But yet you somehow suggest that, you know, Kurds are the only ones who are somehow frozen in time when it comes to their ideology.
It is true. Change can happen, and Turkey is counting on this. There's a reason why Turkey is not bombing also PKK. Turkey is not bombing people who support PKK, because we believe they can change, and we don't want to solve this by just simply killing people. We don't believe in this. I also personally believe in change, and I also believe PKK will change too. You know, they will leave this ideology, but they didn't. I mean, we don't have, you know, a socialist, a communist Russia anymore. It changed. Maybe your parents swore allegiance to communism, but the times change, and they also changed. But PKK didn't. You know, they are not even claiming to change. So
let me pose you a question then. If, for example, there is a new political force among the Kurds in Turkey, Syria, Iraq that renounces Marxist and Leninist ideology, but that still, you know, holds on to this idea of a nation state, would you support an independent Kurdistan that is free of Marxist ideology?
Of course, I mean, everyone would support that. Turkish people would support that too, because Turkey believes in a greater union, a union in the Middle East, which will include not only the Muslim states, but also non-Muslim states like the Israel and Armenia. So we believe we will, in the end, form a European Union-like union. So in this union, everyone will be living peacefully. So, of course, everyone would support it. And if you look at Turkey, Turkey supports the Kurdish autonomous region in Iraq. Turkey has been the basic supporter of the, Kurdish autonomous region.
Well, Ceylan, I think Turkish authorities do pay lip service to the Kurdish autonomy in Iraq, but they also bombed a number of targets in Iraqi Kurdistan. Now, you just said that you would support the independent Kurdistan without a Marxist ideology, but that even if that involves, carving off a piece of Turkey?
No, not at all. Turkey is not going to give land to create a Kurdistan. It's not going to happen.
But I mean, how do you envisage that independent state then? If you are not ready to give it a piece of territory, but you would still support it in theory, I mean, how it could be realized in practice?
Oh, I mean, for example, the autonomous region in Iraq and maybe some region from the current Syria, if they want to establish a nation state for the Kurds, they can establish. And I think Turkey will be supportive of it if it's not going to be Marxist or communist. So, but it's not going to happen inside Turkey.
Don't you think that's going to be a very big temptation for many Kurds in Turkey? I mean, we talked about how many of them support the current government, but, I think you can argue that blood is thicker than politics. They may want to join with the four brothers for the right to speak their language, for the right to develop their ethnicity.
They can join. They can go there and join. For example, there are a lot of Jews inside America who want to join their brothers in Israel, you know, and they can go to Israel and join, but they cannot even offer America to establish a Jewish state inside America just because they want to live only with their brothers. But I don't think, you know, it's also a fascist ideology to support a Kurdish-only state. You know, why would a state be Kurdish-only? If you look at Turkey, we elected Kurdish prime ministers, we elected Kurdish presidents. Kurds ruled over Turks. We elected them to rule over us. We said, you should lead us. So why should we change this? You know, why should we say only Kurds will rule over Kurds?
Well, I never suggested that idea, but I think many Kurds in Diyarbakir and areas surrounding that city may claim that this is their territory, this is their land, and if Turks want to come and live in Kurdistan, they are more than welcome to do that, but they would want that territory, that land for themselves.
Well, we can argue if it's their land or our land or whose land, because, you know, there were only a handful of Kurdish states in history, inside especially Anatolia, and none of them lasted longer than 3 years. So it has been ruled by the Turks, by Ottoman Empire for 650 years, and before them Selçuk Empire for, you know, hundreds of years. So it's arguable whether or not whose land it is.
Now, Ceylan, in one of your pieces, you compared, you know, the idea of Kurdistan to Laos or North Korea, but I think Israel, which you already mentioned, is a much more relevant comparison. And regardless of what you think about Israel, even if you support it very strongly, I think it's undeniable that the, you know, the creation of that state created a very long and very lasting discord in the region. And there is absolutely no reason to believe that the creation of a new state like Kurdistan, for example, that would involve, you know, including pieces from various countries, wouldn't be any easier. What do you think about this comparison between the possibility of creating Kurdistan and the Israeli issue?
I think if we are going to compare Israel to another state, we can compare it to Pakistan, whose foundation also lies in religion. The foundation of Israel lies in religion. You know, it's not, you know, it's not an ethnic state really. So it's a religious state. And many Israeli people do not know that the state PKK wants to create. I'm not saying all Kurds, because for me and for many Kurds, I know that PKK does not represent all Kurds. They don't know that PKK and a new Marxist communist state is going to be against the state of Israel. They don't know yet that this communist state is going to be against any kind of religion, including Islam, Judaism, or Christianity. So when they come to realize it, they're not going to be supportive of this idea anymore.
Well, I don't think Israel is such a vocal supporter of the idea of independent Kurdistan, but...
they have been.
But they have been. Well, I think Israel has a capacity of playing many games on many fronts whenever it suits it. But and I know that the relations between Turkey and Israel have been very tense recently because of Israel's very long history of sabotaging any progress on the Palestinian statehood issue. But I wonder if Turkey is playing essentially pretty much the same game, because you said that, you know, we know that Palestinians have been denied the land that they hold claims to, and I think what you're saying that, you know, Palestinians, or rather Kurds, could have their state, but somewhere, you know, not on our territory. So I think a lot of there's a lot of similarities in this dynamic between Israel and Turkey vis-a-vis Kurdish issue.
First of all, I don't support that in the land of Israel there should be another Palestinian state, another Israeli state. I think they should live there altogether, because already right now, as it is, in Israel, in Israeli part, 22% of the Israel is Muslim. So why cannot the others live with them? You know, they should be able to live together. So it is the same as what I support in Turkey. You know, Kurds and Turks live together for more than 650 years, and we should live together like this for many more years. And I think there's a difference, because Turkey sees the Palestinians as religious people, but Turkey does not see PKK as religious people. You know, PKK is against religion and against anyone who supports any religion. So there's a very big difference.
Ceylan, if you believe in you know, freedom of thought, then you should allow people to believe what they want to believe. I mean, not everybody has to be religious. I mean, there are people who are atheists who may share Marxist ideology, as long as they don't implement it in violent ways. They have all right to do that. But let me ask you very, very quickly. You said that you do not support the two-state solution for Israeli-Palestinian issue, but the president of your country clearly does. I mean, he is in favor of the two-state solution. And I wonder, what is such a big difference between the Palestinian claims to statehood and the Kurdish claims to statehood?
The difference is Palestinians are seen as religious people, and we see a Palestinian state not a threat to other states around it. But everyone, including Turkey, will see a PKK state, a Marxist communist state, as a threat to everyone in the region. We don't want to create a new North Korea in the middle of Middle East.
Well, okay, Ceylan, we have to leave it there. I really appreciate you being on the show. And to our viewers, please chime in with your views on our Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube pages. And I hope to see you again, same place, same time, here on Worlds Apart.